On 7:30 Queensland, Labor's pre-election budget weighed down by natural disasters.
It's a budget fuelled by reconstruction but defined by optimism.
The economic battle begins.
It's a depressing budget, it's an embarrassing budget, it does nothing to provide hope to the people of Queensland.
But can it save the government at the polls?
The problem for Andrew Fraser, I think, is that he may not be around to actually reap the benefits.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of 7:30 as we delve into the state budget, Labor's last before Queenslanders are due to go to the polls. The government's calling it a budget of choices. On the one hand, there are measures to cut costs of living and boost the construction industry, but on the other, a stamp duty discount that's benefited thousands of home buyers has been abolished. Labor is bullish about the future, pointing to an economic boom, but the opposition describes the budget as depressing and accuses the government of offering just a few trinkets. John Taylor reports.
In a world of now instant and almost constant communications, for a few hours once a year at Queensland Parliament, time is briefly suspended. Journalists were corralled under a strict no publication policy to begin scrutinising this year's budget, to be made public many hours later.
Guys, everybody knows the rules. Welcome to the lockup. 10 till 12. Open your packs. Away you go.
Ahead of today, the government had released much of the detail. GPS monitoring of sex offenders, moving Year 7 to high school, a business commissioner to reduce red tape, smart state, research and development grants, and forecast jobs growth of 140,000 over the next 2 years. But defining this budget are really two basic things: the summer of sorrow and the looming election.
This year's state budget is a budget that rebuilds Queensland, that takes the pressure off households, and a budget that delivers a stronger, brighter future for the Queensland economy.
This is a budget which seeks to broaden out the economic expansion so that more Queenslanders can be part of the economic prosperity that is occurring and building in this state. It seeks to join in to that great investment boom that's occurring at this point, being led by our resources sector, being led by an LNG sector. That's why this budget proposes...
The government's own highlights include a $10,000 grant for new homes built in a 6-month period from August, $6.8 billion in state and federal disaster funding, abolishing the compulsory community ambulance cover levy, saving $113 from electricity bills, and increasing council and electricity rebates for pensioners up to a combined total of $430. But to understand the future, one needs to remember the past and the summer of disasters. It smashed Queensland's traditional strengths, mining, agriculture, tourism, and caused growth, projected to come in at 3%, to actually come in at 0, and the deficit to more than double to $4 billion. But the government says the future is bright and is predicting a return to surplus in 2015-16, 5% growth for 2011-12, up to 5.25% the year after, and business investment to surge to 27.75%, part of a new era of prosperity.
I think what you see with this budget is a lot of hard work from a group of people, a government that care passionately about the future of this state, a government that has a big vision for Queensland. What this budget tells you is that the most compelling story of economic sunshine for the next few years in Australia is Queensland.
But Queensland's predicted journey of zero to hero isn't believed by everyone.
Well, I think you have to take everything with a grain of salt. Look, they've consistently cut the economic growth figures for this financial year down from the natural disasters. It was 3 to 1.25 to 1, and now we're finding out that there's there's no economic growth this financial year, which I think is the lowest level since 1982-83 when there was a contraction.
Even if there is growth, there's still the looming state election to fight.
The problem for Andrew Fraser, I think, is that he may not be around to actually reap the benefits of that boom. He's got an election coming up, and a lot of the key turnaround for the economy may be after the LNP is in power, which on the current poll figures it looks likely.
Oh, it's definitely a pre-election budget. And
Michael McKenna, Queensland political editor for the Australian newspaper, sees wiggle room for campaign spending.
I think they probably have, and one of the things that was omitted from the budget papers is about $2.9 billion in revenue that would come from the sale of the state government's stake in QR National. It's about 34% on the market. They don't get to sell it down till September of next year. It's not in the budget papers, and I think they'll predicate a lot of their election promises on that $2.9 billion.
LNP leader Campbell Newman's response to the budget is scathing.
All in all, it's a depressing budget, it's an embarrassing budget, it does nothing to provide hope to the people of Queensland.
He says the government is offering trinkets while the debt burden is growing.
It's a budget that sees an explosion of debt in 3 years' time to $85 billion. That's the reality of the situation. Sees the interest payments at that time going to $100 million a week, or $595,000 an hour each and every hour. And how is that being paid for? It's being paid for by Queenslanders. It's being paid for by families through a higher government charges, through a higher cost of living.
Another set piece of Queensland Budget Day is the parade of lobby groups wanting their say. Their verdict, as always, mixed.
We've been struggling at about 50% capacity for the last couple of years, so this boost will be a real kickstart to our industry.
We do see this budget as a missed opportunity to repair the fiscal imbalance that the budget is in.
It's another deficit, it's another year. Fundamentally, we have to start living within our means in this state.
Do you think it's an election-winning budget?
I'm not sure if the current government could have an election-winning budget, but in terms of the current process, this is a budget clearly designed for the election. The significant savings that occur in our years are savings that they won't have to be responsible for until after the next election.
Well done. All right. Let's go.